So far we learned about the internal methods in the list itself, but there are also some generic functions that can be applied. We learned the reversed and sorted from them, but there are actually more. If you try to access the built-in functions in the Python documentation, you will notice a lot of functions. But also the good news, we already know about a lot of them. So let's see more about these functions with the list thing. The first thing here to highlight is the input function. The input function is a very interesting function. The input function itself is going to return a string for a single line that we read. We already know about that. The input function is returning a string, and this string has a method that called split, and the split takes a string line and split it based on spaces by default and returning for you a list of strings. So the first thing to know here, and very interesting, is that input.split is actually returning a list. So far we were learning to use a fixed number of returned items, like for example we use 3 items like ABC to get it in input.split, and we used to, given that it's now returning a list, we can just iterate and return them. So what is good in that is, now instead of being limited to I'm reading 4 integers, I'm reading 3 items, you can actually write whatever you would like and just get it in a list and iterate over it as you would like. And more interestingly, when we were using the map of int input.split, so far we say that it's going to convert everything in an integer. If you again took all of this output in a list, so this like iterable thing, pass it to the list, you will get a list of integers. So you see here, the type of this is a list, the type of the first item is an integer. The moral of this is you can have flexible reading using a list. So either if you would like a list of string, you can just get it here directly, or if you would like to use a list of integers, you just use it directly here, list over a map of something. We will see this a lot in the practice and in the homework. So this is very, very nice and very flexible, instead of a few fixed numbers of items to use. There is also some of the very general functions like the sum and the min and max. Sum of a list that will return the sum of the items. Min of the list will return the minimum of the items. Max will return the maximum of the items. If the list have numbers, then the min and max will be for the numbers. If the list have strings, it will be list of the min and max of strings. If you try to have a mix of integer and list, you will get an error. There is also an interesting function called help. You see this syntax, we say help, give it my list.count without the parentheses. It's going to give you the documentation of this function. We are actually doing something very interesting here. We are passing a function, but this is another topic that we will come back later to it. That's why it doesn't have a parenthesis here. Enumerate, we already know the enumerate function, we saw it a lot. So remember the enumerate function is taking a list, and it can give us the index and the item. Now this enumerate doesn't create a list, it creates something that you can iterate over it. If you would like to get the actual items, you can say list of this something. However, be careful, as we said before, list of something is going to create a new list in the memory. The list will iterate on this sequence and take all of the items to here. So neither range nor enumerate create a list, but the list call itself will create for you a list of the items. There is also 2 functions named all and any. Yeah, it should be all and any. The all function is returning true if and only if all the items are true. Remember, our items are false if they have have false value, or empty string, or a 0 value. These are the only items that make something as false. So here in this all of items, any of them is false, the answer is no. Is all of them true? The answer is true. So the all is returning true if everything inside it is true. An empty list is true. Any one of these items will make the all false because one of the items is just false. There is also the any. The any is the reverse. The any is not the reverse. The any is if any single item is true, it will return true. So for example, here we have a list of 4 items. All of them are true except this guy is here false. If you said if you wrote all of list, it will return false because this item is false. But if you wrote any, it's going to be true because there are at least 3 items who are true. So this is the all and the any function. They are nice utilities. In terms of documentation, if you try to access the documentation, you will notice the all return true if all of elements are true. The any is true if all elements are iterable. As a side note, the all and the any follow a side shortcut style. This means in the all, with the first element that is false, the function will stop. It will not continue to evaluate everything, and this is an efficient way. And in a very similar way, if the function is any, with the first element that is true, the function will return true. So we say that this is like similar to the short circuit style. That's all.